traditional SEO is not dead, but there is plenty of things you can be doing to actually improve how your brand ranks in the AI models, in addition to producing the content you're already doing. There's lots of things we talked about today, but those ultimately are the best ways to kind of get in front of this new way that users are searching. I'm Jon Mest, and this is SEO in 2025 Additional Insights.
Jon, what's your additional insight for SEO in 2025?
My additional insight for SEO in 2025 is all about how to rank better in the AI models. So just like SEO for traditional search, being aware and making sure your brand is visible in the AI models is just as important as traditional search moves more towards things like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and others.
Just as important as traditional search. Does that mean that it's got the potential to bring in as much traffic?
Not yet. But the beautiful thing about this is that it is early, and that we find that the brands that are jumping on this early are getting a distinct competitive advantage over those that are not thinking about this already. And so I'm not here to tell you that search in ChatGPT is nearly as high as search in Google or other traditional search methods. But what I can say is that it's growing rapidly by the day, and certain things 10 types of things you search are different. We'll talk more about this, but people search in natural language and ask more kind of detailed questions to the AI models versus traditional keyword searching in Google. And so we can talk more about that.
So what does ranking better in AI models actually mean in practice? Because obviously you don't have the 10 blue links in this particular scenario.
Yeah, so if you went into a tool like ChatGPT and said, I want the best coffee in New York City, it's going to generally provide for you, 5, maybe 10 options for the best coffee in New York City. You didn't ask it for 5 or 10 options, but it always knows to kind of give you options and talk about things. It's not going to say X coffee shop is the best coffee in New York City. It's going to try to give you and learn more about your tastes, what you like. Do you prefer fair trade, organic coffee? Do you prefer strong black coffee? And so it's going to kind of have that conversation with you. And so over time, instead of just ranking for keywords, you have to think about what types of prompts and conversations do you want to be included in. And that is kind of a different approach to thinking about how you rank. And so the AI models do kind of identify these are our top 5, top 10, top 20 brands or companies we're going to recommend given a certain situation.
And is the process for getting ranked quite different compared with the process for getting ranked in a more conventional search engine?
I think the nice thing for this audience is that it actually is very similar, but there are distinct differences. So I don't think I'm not about to tell you that traditional SEO is dead. That is absolutely not true. Traditional SEO is very important because getting that content out there and making sure that you're an authoritative brand is the most important thing you can be doing for the AI models. Now, there are additional things you can be doing, and we can talk more about those as well. But really, it's about presenting your brand in a way that almost more like what a robot would understand and listen, rather than just like writing directly to humans. And so it's a kind of a balance between it has to be human-generated, authoritative content, but written in a simple, easy way for the AI models to scrape and read in real time so that they can provide you as an answer. It's kind of a little bit of a balancing game.
It's funny, SEOs used to focus on the algorithms and what they had to do just to appeal to Google, and then it was all about the user, and algorithms were actually clever enough to understand real proper content and what to take from that content and who was the authority in that particular industry. But are we back to actually writing for robots again? And if so, is there going to be a timeline between that and just writing normally and naturally again?
I wouldn't say that we're writing for robots. I'd say that we're writing certain types of content and pieces of information that's more easily accessible by quote unquote robots. And so you still need to provide anecdotes, make your content feel very comfortable, very kind of human written. You want it to feel good to your customers, or they're going to click off the page and then it's not going to really matter. But what you do need to do is, for example, instead of writing 4 sentences in a paragraph, if there's a way to provide that as a bulleted list, the AI models prefer the bullets in a list rather than the 4 sentences in a paragraph. Same information, same tone. You can write it in very similar ways, but just sometimes organizing information into more structured ways, it can be a little bit more effective for the AI models to see it. So like I said, it's kind of a balance. You don't want a whole page of bulleted lists. That doesn't look very good to the user either. But if there's a way to kind of provide certain key information in that format, sometimes that is really effective.
Okay, so that's a good tip there. So I guess what you said there is you need to write for users and the robots that are reading your text. So if it's a case of that piece of content perhaps reads better to users in paragraph form, then maybe include the paragraphs first of all and then summarize the article afterwards in bullet form. Would that be a fair way to do it?
Absolutely. You can definitely do that. And there's different ways, again, you can kind of balance that action there. So another great example and a great tip I'd give is instead of when you're talking about yourself and your company, this is the one thing we see a lot of our brands get wrong, is that they'll say, oh, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is what we focus on, and it'll be like a paragraph about who you are and what you do. That's great, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. We should also then have a conclusion sentence to maybe to that section, which is, I am X company that does X thing really well for X user community because we do X. And it's much more structured. It sounds a little more robotic, and it's not exactly the way you want to convey your brand generally to your audience, but including that kind of more fluffy version of it and then following up with the core statement, that kind of snippet, that little one sentence piece is easily kind of pulled out of your content and placed into an AI answer or a Google snippet overview or things like that. And so those types of pieces of content are very, very important to be very clear and crisp about you and your story in one sentence, if possible, along with, the traditional language or way you present this in your content generally.
And how important is traditional or more conventional HTML markup, such as headings, perhaps some strong tags, italicized elements? Are those important for bots as well?
Yeah, they do love Markdown. That is one thing that the AI models really love. Like, they look to see headers, header twos, then subsections and things like that. That is very, very helpful. Now, over time, I'm guessing that'll be, less important. But right now, I kind of almost say that the AI scrapers, like the OpenAI scrapers, are sort of like Google in 1998. They're just kind of figuring out how to read content and how to understand what they're looking at. And so the more you can structure it and make it easier for them to see that, the better. Now, like I said, over time, that'll probably be less important. But right now, it is really kind of helpful if you can structure your pages with that clear schema, that clear markup.
And how important is authority or industry authority to these bots? And do they actually make a concerted effort to actually list websites that are perceived to be authority in their industry, or is it all about the quality and relevance of the piece of content?
This is the number one thing that I think is most misunderstood about some of these models, is that they actually are less likely to just accept what Google has decided is authoritative through like DA or DR, and more so into the actual content you're providing. So it's a much more meritocratic system. And so here's some stats I'll give you. This is from, I believe SEO Journal quoted this, but it was that 52% of the AI overviews in Google come from page one links, meaning almost half, 48% come from pages 2 through infinity. Like, so they come from not the first page. That's because Gemini, even again going against Google's traditional algorithm, is actually saying, we want to find the best piece of content for this answer. And if it comes from page 3, because that's the best content, we'll take it. And the way it determines that is by looking at every piece of content written about this topic, comparing them and seeing what sounds to be and what makes the most sense as far as it's most densely packed with information. It has all the right types of things you want to cover. It talks well about the competition if it needs to do that. It's not just going to say everybody else stinks and I'm great. It's going to be like much more authoritative in that way. So what we found is that the best piece of content you can write to help promote yourself in the AI models actually might give a boost to some of your competitors if you have to mention that they're pretty good too. But that's okay, because you are now telling the AI models, I'm producing the best authoritative content. So next time you write a piece of content, they're going to come back to the well and come back to you again.
So how does a brand tend to be featured and represented in ChatGPT? What are the best opportunities, and what do you have to do to ensure that you're not trying to over-optimize things and actually annoy both the bots and the users by selling your brand too much?
Yeah, so I think it is that natural balance. And like I mentioned before, traditional SEO and traditional content writing is not dead in any way. It is absolutely important to make sure that you are kind of conveying your brand in the way you want to. Now, at the same time, you need to be able to kind of explain why you're better. I mean, you want your content to be like pumping you up and pumping your brand to both the humans reading it and also the AI models to suggest it. And so, like I said, there is that bit of a balance, but we find that there are certain types of content written in the certain way that we've found to be, most likely to be cited, most likely to be used by the AI models when given answers. And so that is kind of what we have done at ChatRank, is to help people understand how to write that content, what type of content to include, and then, just publish that over time. Now, there's ways that you could actually publish maybe 2 pieces of content, one more geared towards your user community and one more geared towards the AI models. It's that's a strategy for you and your brand team, but ultimately, we really think that the content has to be written like an authoritative way for both your human eyeballs, but also for the AI models to understand it most effectively.
So what measurable impact does this actually have? How do you measure traffic or uplift in brand awareness because of being featured here?
Yes. So this is something that's kind of developing over time. Now, what we can say right away is that people are using the AI models sort of like to do window shopping. It's sort of like a billboard. So if you are going to say, I want to find the next software for, PR outreach, for software for media outreach, you're going to go to a ChatGPT and explain, this is my brand. Please read my website, learn everything you can about me as a person, me as a brand. And now go ahead and actually like suggest for me based on this is my budget, this is what I want to accomplish, this is what I want to like look at. I want to go find podcasts and local blogs and, like one Forbes journalist to help me kind of get the word out there about my brand. And I need you to give me 5 options. ChatGPT, the AI model is going to go find for you the best options based on your parameters, based on your prompt, and then provide for you those 5 answers. Now, you might not click right away and actually go buy from that page, but it's okay because you're now implanted in your head. You know now who those 5 companies are, and very often that's now going to be download that list of 5 names and now go reach out to each 5 of them, all of them for a demo. And so you are seeing increased traffic, increased volume. I can tell you this because us at Just Reach Out, once we started implementing what we've now built into ChatRank as a product, we started seeing every week now we're getting inbounds from ChatGPT, from Claude, from Gemini, from Perplexity. And so we see it as like essentially a free channel for us now that we've already established our brand in these models. Because again, it doesn't, you don't have to pay for Google ads. This is just once you're in the model and once you're ranking well, obviously you have to maintain that over time, and that's important to track and monitor. But ultimately, once you're in, you kind of can start reaping the benefits of that right away.
Are you finding that certain users are actually gravitating towards an AI search engine and just using that as the initial search place to go to actually do the initial queries and then actually drill down and decide to make a purchase decision from there? Or is it more part of an omni-channel approach where they perhaps use that and then go back to Google and then perhaps some of their social media activity before making that kind of decision?
It's an excellent question. It's something actually we just wrote a blog post about a couple weeks ago because this was my experience. I was buying a new backpack for myself as a work bag. And so I did exactly what you just described. I went to ChatGPT. I described exactly what I wanted my backpack to be. I got 5 great options. I then went to Google and did some more research, went and watched some YouTube videos on my top 2 choices, and then ended up purchasing from Google. So it is, for me, it was more of an omni approach where I just I did my research in the AI model. It really helped me hone down on the 2 or 3 that I thought would be most effective. And then eventually, I could have, I guess, clicked through to those pages, but I did end up going to Google and then just searching for those brands and then watching, their social content on the products and things like that. So I took it that way. I'm hearing from more and more friends that they are just exclusively using the AI models. I personally use all the above, but I think it really is kind of that journey is evolving over time. And I think more and more people, as these models get smarter about this, will help you kind of convert more through the model itself. Today, it's more, I see more as like digital advertising, more like a billboard, which is extremely important. It's just like doing an Instagram ad or a Meta ad. It is just about, finding the way to get your brand out there in front of consumers. And then how they purchase, like you'll see over time. One tip I'll say is if you are asking your customers how they found you, please include AI model or like ChatGPT or one of these like as a referral source, because you will start seeing more and more people like write that in. And that obviously is a quick way to learn and help yourself.
You just mentioned it there. I was just about to ask you actually how you go about measuring leads from AI models. Is that something you have to do manually through some kind of form, or is there software that can help you with this as well?
Yes, so you can do UTM tracking on the AI model referrals. So that is something you should absolutely implement if you want to look at that, as well as you can then also just kind of like more anecdotally or kind of qualitatively see from referrals that people are entering in when they sign up. But yes, there are quantitative and qualitative ways to look at it. But again, this is kind of evolving over time. I think the AI models eventually will get better at showing you that they are directly leading to additional leads and additional sales for your business. Because like again, OpenAI is not going to make hit their valuation targets on $20 a month from me or you. Like they're going to need to kind of figure out new revenue channels eventually. But so right now, I think they're kind of being a little coy about it and learning from their users. But over time, I think they are going to be more kind of direct with showing you how they are adding value to your website and to your growth as a revenue business.
So you started talking about ChatGPT, but you also mentioned Claude, Perplexity, another model as well, I think. Is ChatGPT still the best source of leads?
It's the most traffic. So I'd say that ChatGPT and Google Gemini, which produces the Google AI overviews and the Google kind of AI stuff, those are by far number 1 and 2, like by a long shot. So I think they represent over 80% of the traffic of the AI models. So I think Claude and Perplexity are 3 and 4. In our experience, there are differences to these different models and how you can potentially rank in them. For now, just anything that like we're telling you to do and kind of how we're showing people how to do is very important. And I think over time, we will get more specific about the individual models. One thing I will say is we are producing kind of different ways to specifically target Google AI overviews and Google snippets, because those are so important. When you do search a term and above the fold, you see like an AI overview, you being in that is highly, highly, highly like advantageous for your brand. So we are doing targeting towards that specifically. But otherwise, yeah, it's mostly ChatGPT and Google, because those are just the most users. They have the most users today.
And is there anything up and coming in the space that perhaps isn't delivering traffic at the moment, but you've got an eye on to potentially check out in the next few months as something that might be the next thing to come?
Yeah, so I think a lot of these agentic AI companies, so basically having an AI agent go through your emails and your calendar and your schedule and your work product and say, okay, now based on what I'm doing here, can you recommend for me, some other tools I should be using or something else I can be doing to help me with my day-to-day, help me with generating more leads, help me with converting my leads, help me with, any like kind of part of your business. So those AI models, they're all built on top of like the core, AIs that we're talking about. But those types of like agentic AI systems are getting better and better by the day and helping you figure out everything from like how to squash bugs in your code to how to like generate more leads or how to convert your leads that you already have in your pipeline through HubSpot and things like that. Those kind of like new tools, like I said, there's hundreds of them popping up every day. Some are good, some are not so good. But I think overall, those are you kind of see some kind of go to the top there as far as like most effective. And those are going to be really, really like, I think personally, for me at least, really helpful for me to kind of optimize myself as I'm going through my day-to-day.
So John, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
Yeah, the key takeaway is traditional SEO is not dead, but there is plenty of things you can be doing to actually improve how your brand ranks in the AI models in addition to producing the content you're already doing. There's lots of things we talked about today, but those ultimately are the best ways to kind of get in front of this new way that users are searching.
Jon Mest is co-founder at ChatRank and CEO of Just Reach Out, and you can find him over at chatrank.ai. John, thanks so much for adding your additional insight to SEO in 2025.
Thanks, David.
I've been your host, David Bain, and you've been listening to SEO in 2025 Additional Insights, a Majestic series that complements the original podcast, video series, and book. Find out more at SEOin2025.com.